Welcome to episode 39 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary, with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there is nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club, where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
So, today we wanted to kind of talk about our favorite nonfiction books, because I know it is something that we haven't really talked at all about. So, Kristen, what are your favorite nonfiction reads?
So I don't think that nonfiction gets enough love. Like, there's a ton of awesome nonfiction out there, and I just feel like people don't get to it enough.
Mm-hmm. I'm one of those people.
I mean, I sort of am too. I'm in an academic mode right now, so I'm not doing as much for funsies as I am for like educative purposes, which I will actually get into. My all-time favorite, like top of the list, is a book called Listening to Whales, What the Orcas Have Taught Us. It's by Alexandra Morton. I feel like we may have talked before about how I'm obsessed and how I'm in love with orca whales. So it has that going for it. But the book itself is really cool. So she's a marine biologist who started a career in the 70s working for like not SeaWorld, but like Marine World or like something like that, is a marine park that is closed now. And essentially she pioneered the idea of putting a hydrophone underwater and listening and recording orca sounds to like study. So she's been studying orca populations, especially in the Washington, BC area for years and years, like those resident orca populations. And she specializes essentially in their vocal patterns. So like now at this point in her career, you know, she could listen to a recording of those whales and be like, oh, they're hunting, or oh, they're communicating, for like she can tell what all the little like clicks and whistles and everything, like she can tell the difference between them all. It's really cool.
That's so cool.
Anyway, so the book is essentially, it's not like super data forward. Like she's not saying like due to this blah 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 blah, blah. Like it's not like statistics. It's like a compilation of stories from her life and like her career that led her down this path. And like it really, if anybody ever had any thought that these animals were lesser creatures, this book would dissuade you of it immediately. And like it really showcases like you know, she says that she discovered through her research that you know, they have different sounds for different things. Like they're talking. Like we don't understand the language, but they are talking and they all sound different and they all talk differently to like they'll speak one way to one animal and then speak another way to a different, like it's all different how they talk to each other, and they have like hundreds of different sounds that they make. And she also learned that they actually have a separate part of their brain like dedicated to familial connections, which is why orca whales in captivity do so poorly and like live to only be like 15, because their brain is literally dying. A part of their brain literally dies when they're removed from their family.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. So yeah, it's just like it's such a great book. Another reason why I like it is, so my husband actually gave it to me as, I think it was like the first real year that we did Christmas together. He gave me that book, and it wasn't something that I ever would have thought to get for myself. And I just like, yeah, sure, it's just a book. I didn't even know that book existed. But the fact that he listened to me knew that I liked orcas so much and then did research to find this book in general and then had it ordered and like he wrapped it and gave it to me. Like,
Yeah.
just the fact that he thought of all those things, it holds a special place for those couple of reasons.
No, I love that.
Yeah. Another one is called Kids These Days, A Game Plan for Reconnecting with Those We Teach by Dr. Jody Carrington. I originally read it a couple years ago through like a school organized book club where we read like teacher focused material.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really nice one too. It really gives us a different view of how to teach, I guess what you call like the kids that don't listen, like the kids that are disruptive. It sort of gives another lens through which you can look at those kids and like talking about like if they're always in fight or flight because of a traumatic background, well, how are you supposed to teach them? Like, how are you supposed to expect them to sit in their chair if they're always constantly in fight or flight mode because they've always been in fight or flight mode because they're in a dangerous home? So like it just gives a really different look at how to handle your classroom, how to handle those specific students, you know, and I just it gives you a different, I don't know, like a lot of teachers are very like sit in your chairs, don't move, don't talk, blah blah blah, and like it's just that's not a feasible way to teach anymore because you
No.
have kids, you know, with all these crazy backgrounds. So
Everyone learns differently and everyone has different paths.
yeah, so you know, that's the like teachery book. I'm also knee deep right now in a course on environmental history, and we are reading this week excerpts from Rachel Carson's book Silent Spring. It came out originally in the 60s and it was a huge movement in modern environmentalism. Essentially, she did all these studies on different pesticides that were in use and how they're like seeping into the earth and like, you know, like we grow crops with pesticides, like then the pesticides are eventually going to end up in our bodies and like, you know, proving essentially that trace amounts of pesticides are now everywhere because they use them so liberally that they're like, and you know, essentially just being like, why is there such a war on insects that live outside and blah blah blah. And anyway, the book itself, it's like obviously it's a little bit dry because it's talking about like pesticides and stuff, and there is stuff on like the chemical makeup of each of the pesticides, so, like you sort of skim through that.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting because at the time that she wrote it, she was challenged, like she was hated so profusely by people because I guess she was challenging gender roles at the time, like, and sort of saying like, this is bad for our environment, we shouldn't be doing this. But
Yeah.
then all of these pesticide companies and all of these companies that were using these chemicals were like, oh, she's just a hysterical housewife and like trying to discredit her really badly. And then she
Yeah.
ended up dying like 2 years later of breast cancer. So like,
Oh, shit.
yeah, she never got the chance to sort of be like, you guys suck and this is real life.
Yeah, that's
And
sad. But it's nice to see like a woman author did that in the 60s. Like that
yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah, but like they did like what do you call them? Those like funny cartoons. But yeah, so they were doing stuff like that in putting it in the paper, like publishing these like politically driven cartoons with her as the subject. Like they were mocking the shit out of her. It was really sad.
Oh, that is sad.
Anyway, yeah, no, it was sad, and but yeah, so I'm really happy that I'm learning about her now. Rachel Carson, everybody, like look her up because the men of the time really did her dirty.
Yeah. Well, men of every time.
That's true. What kind of nonfiction books are you into?
On that depressing topic.
I know, right? You're gonna lighten it up a bit, right?
Oh, I'm not. So, I don't really read a whole lot of nonfiction, if I'm going to be honest. I'm a very big fan of fiction books because I like the escapism of them.
Right.
And I like the romance, and I like all of that we talk about every week. Like that is my bread and butter of books. But I have read, obviously in my lifetime, a few, but the one I guess most recent is actually Crying in H Mart, which is a pretty popular book now. I actually listened to the audiobook, and it was pretty good. It's a book like most of the books that are on my list about grief, kind of. And so like it had obviously its sad moments and stuff like that, but it was definitely a good look at a culture that is not my own, and going through grief when you have difficult relationships with the person who's passed. So it was definitely an interesting read, and something that I enjoyed listening to. Enjoy not being the completely right word, but you know what I mean. Another that I actually bought as soon as it came out is called, this is a very long title and I apologize, but it's not my fault because
you didn't write the book.
Exactly. But it's called Everyone You Hate Is Gonna Die, and Other Comforting Thoughts on Family, Friends, Sex, Love, and More Things That Ruin Your Life. And it's by Daniel Sloss. And he's a comedian. I first saw his stuff on Netflix and just loved it. He's does dark comedy, I guess. He would argue that it's not dark, but it is for most people. His first special has a lot about death in it. And anyway, it just was, I loved his comedy, and the book was good, but I do feel like he had some stuff in there, like just to be provocative. Like, I feel like that's kind of common now in comedy, that people feel the need to say things just to be provocative. But anyway, I did enjoy the book. I also read It's Okay to Not Be Okay by Megan Devine. And it's actually like a very, very good book for anybody that is going through any kind of grief. It really helped me when I was going through a period of grief, and I think it's one of the only books that I read at that time that was actually like made a dent in my feelings. You know what I mean? So I would definitely suggest that if it's something that you're going through. And then a book that kind of on the same vein of your orca love, my shark love, a book called Save the Humans by not Rod Stewart.
Can you imagine if it was Rod Stewart that's secretly a shark lover and like,
yeah, it'd be pretty cool.
It would be pretty cool.
But Rob Stewart was a shark documentarian. He has a film, Sharkwater Revolution, and during his second Sharkwater movie, he actually died while scuba diving, which is not great. But
from a shark or just from scuba diving?
I think it was just from scuba diving. I don't think it was from a shark. But if it was from a shark, you know what? I'm sure he would have been even happier. Because, like, if I have to go one way.
Yeah, that's true. And, like, God, you're in their territory, man.
Exactly. And he is very much a proponent of that. Like, so. But his book was great. And I feel like it was, like, kind of an autobiography. But I just really related to his childhood obsession with sharks. Because that's when mine started, too. And it was just, like, such a niche, I guess, thing.
Yeah.
And it was just so nice to like, see, I wasn't the only one, everyone thinks they're unique and they're not. It's great. I'm also in the queue in Libby for the book I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. She was on iCarly. And I've just heard a lot of things about the book, and I'm excited to read it, even though I know it's probably going to be an emotional and hard read. But
yeah. I love how opposite our nonfiction choices are. Like mine are like facts, yes, like science, teaching, like it's all like learning based, and yours is like emotions, like
which is kind of just funny in general because I'm not really like the most emotions of people in the world.
yeah, I think out of the two of us, they would say I'm the more emotional of the two of us.
Yeah.
But you're actually, I think actually you are very emotional. You just hide them behind your stoic visage.
I keep it bottled down and shoved into a big black hole and down.
Yeah, it's fine. That's where it lives, and it's okay.
Where it belongs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so as you should know by now, we're not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get a little saucy.
I will say, in terms of sauce, this book is very light on it.
It is.
There's like no sauce in this book. It's like, what? Romance? Where?
But
it has
the little moments mean so much more because there's no romance. Ugh, I'm such a softie at heart. Just cut it out of my chest and throw it away.
I just want everybody to jump each other and like make out and be done with it already.
I just want them to love each other deeply in their hearts.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Here we are, folks.
Week 4.
Yeah. So we are on week 4 of Six of Crows. This is the last week for it. Wait till the end to figure out what book we're gonna do next week.
You might be able to guess. Also, next week is December.
I'm stoked. December is my favorite month.
Wild. So soon.
Yeah. So we are reading today chapters 30 to the end, which I think is called After.
It's not. I said that last week. I'm an asshole.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, whatever. It's just called the end then. It's fine.
Yeah, it's true.
So chapters 30 to the very end if you're following along at home. Last week, we've got sort of their plan in motion now. So our intrepid 6 are in Fjerda. They're in the ice court sort of area. They've escaped from the jails. They made it to the roof. They realize, though, they have to separate because there was an extra checkpoint or something set up. So Nina and Inej are going to sneak in through the front gate with some menagerie girls. They're going to, like, switch places with them and dress up and go in that way. Matthias and Kaz knock out some guards and steal their uniforms. And Jesper and Wylan are heading to Trigger Black Protocol, whatever that is. Yeah, it sounds sexy, but it's I don't think it is.
No. So much happens.
Oh my god, so much happens in this. Like, I feel like this episode is going to take us a million years because I feel like so much friggin' happens.
Yeah, it's kind of wild because, like, you're saying where we left off last week, and all I can think about is where I ended my notes, and I'm like, holy shit.
I know. So much has to happen. We're in Jesper's POV for this chapter, and he sort of is thinking to himself that he knows he should be pissed off at Kaz for, like, going off-piste and, like, taking it upon himself to go check all the cells when that wasn't the plan. But, like, he's so friggin', like, happy to be, like, out on a job, I guess we'll say. Like, he's so full of adrenaline that, like, he doesn't really care.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of like, I wonder why he's so full of adrenaline. And it's sort of, I don't know why I think it in my brain, but I do. Like, we know he's a fabricator.
Mm-hmm.
right? So like I'm wondering if that excess adrenaline is due to the fact that he doesn't use his powers very often.
And he just used them twice in a very short period of time. Do you
Yeah.
think, is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So like he's so full. I'm wondering if that has an aspect. I don't know why I think that, but I do.
So I just want to like put a tiny little bit of a spoiler in here for the next book.
Okay.
So if you don't want to hear it, skip 30 seconds to a minute ahead. But I think it must be in the next book. They talk about how as a fabricator, it's metal. So whenever he uses his guns, he's using his craft. So he's directioning like the bullets so they can go around corners. It's literally the Matrix. Because he's a fabricator, he can make bullets. So he uses it all the time, but that's why he loves shooting, because it is
him being able to use his power.
Exactly. And that's why he feels so good afterwards. But I do think that you're onto something here.
Thanks.
You're
I try.
And now we're done with the spoiler.
Anyway, so there's like, he's like so full of adrenaline. He's like hopped up, like he's super stoked. They're like sneaking across the rooftops. A really gross bit is like some of the rooftops are all glass, so you can see down in them, and they look down into one, and they see this like really huge banner that's sort of quiltish. So it's like patchworky. And they sort of look at it for a second and realize that they are Grisha Keftas. So essentially they're trophies taken from all the Grisha that they've killed and like put together to make this big banner. There's like red and blue and purple. So like Jesper says like there could be hundreds or thousands of different Keftas woven into that banner. And I'm just like, again, it's bringing back those like genocidal, like you start thinking about all the genocides that like have happened in our world history and thinking about like that's a thing.
All the shoes.
Yes.
It's a very like that's one that I remember vividly from school seeing is shoes.
Yeah. So like just that sort of they're putting that in your brain and it's sort of like bleh. You know what I mean? Like it makes you want to be sick a little bit, realizing that they're like serial killer trophies.
Yeah.
Anyway. So they go to the gate that they're supposed to, I guess the idea is that they're going to trigger Black Protocol by making a gate malfunction. Or like hard. Or they're gonna do something that like makes them all the guards like be like, oh my god, something's happening, and then they're gonna lock them all in by disabling the gate. So they find the gate and there should be 4 guards there, but they only see 1, so they're kind of like weird, like what's going on? And they're kind of like, well, maybe our stint at the jail when Nina raised the alarm at the jail, maybe that pulled some people away. So, like, if we only have 1 guard, that's amazing. We only got 1 guy to deal with. Jesper was, like, really grossed out about the whole banner thing, and he kept thinking about what his life would have been like if he had gone to Ravka instead of Kerch and joined the Second Army. Because we've already discussed that he's from a small town with his dad, and his dad has a farm. Like, that's how he grew up. And I think he's, Zemeni?
I think so, yeah.
So he's not from Kerch or Ravka. So he's thinking, like, what if I, instead of stopping in Kerch and becoming this, like, sort of outlaw with a gambling problem, what if I had gone to Ravka and, like, joined the Second Army? And, like, he's thinking maybe he would sort of be in a better place in life and, like, have control over his Grisha powers. Anyway, that's just his inner dialogue. Yeah. And like, why are you thinking about that stuff when you're in the middle of a heist? I just feel like he should focus.
That's fair.
So he has a plan to disable the guards, or the guard that he sees. So he essentially just tells Wylan to stay put, because he still thinks Wylan is friggin' useless. So, funny part, like, this is the comic relief for me. He starts to repels down the wall because they're on the roof. So he starts to rappel down the wall to disable the one guard that he sees, when all of a sudden 2 more walk out of the guardhouse. And Jesper's like, shit, I can't take on all 3 at once. So he's like hanging from a rope, like halfway down a building, and like trying not to get seen by these guys, because all they have to do is look up and they'll see him like just hanging there. And it's just funny. So he's like starting to sort of panic. And all of a sudden, he hears like singing and somebody coming down the lane. And he's like, oh shit, maybe that's the 4th guard. I'm so screwed. But then he sees that figure sort of acting drunk and like singing a little bit. And all of a sudden he notices that it's not the other guard, it's Wylan. And Wylan, with his drunken singing act, manages to distract the guards enough that they killed/knocked them out. I think they killed 1 or 2 and they knocked out a couple.
Yeah. I love the like spy movie imagery of him just being up there like, oh no, and like, you know, like it's played out over top of them. Like, that's all I can envision, and I love it.
And I picture him starting to like move, not of his own volition, like start to rotate in a circle, like as he's there.
Yes.
Like as he's like hanging there with his arms out and his legs out, all of a sudden he starts to spin. He's like, oh shit.
Like a snowflake.
Yeah.
I love
Guys,
it.
if you can't see it, like, not if, you can't see us.
If you can see us, there's a problem.
So you can't see us right now, but both of us are like doing the motions of being like splayed out, hanging from a rope.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So they grab the uniforms of 2 of the dead guards, and then they tie up the other 2 that are still alive. They debate whether they should kill them. And Jesper's like, can you? Like, would you be able to kill this guy, like, in cold blood? And Wylan's sort of like, I mean, I've never really killed anyone before. I've never, like, seen a dead body before I came to the barrel. And it's sort of like, oh, of course you haven't, Snowflake. Like, Jesper's like, sort of like, yeah, no shit. Like, you haven't seen a dead body before getting to the barrel. Like, the barrel's not an easy place to live. So they go into the tower and they find this mechanism that's controlling the gate. And it's a steel chain mechanism, like around some gears or something like that. They sort of went into it thinking it would be a rope or something easier to cut.
Yeah.
But it's steel chain. But luckily, again, Jesper's a fabricator. So he's like using his fabricator powers to try and weaken the chain. But like, he wasn't trained, so he's not very good at it. And Wylan, for some odd reason, took a pair of shears from the laundry room. So he's like, I don't know if he's cutting or like sawing or something. They're just trying to weaken the chain so that the gate doesn't open.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we leave them there doing that, which is equally funny because I just picture them like at a little metal chain, like filing it down to try and break it.
Yeah, like a prison break.
Yeah. Anyway, then we go to Nina's POV. So remember that at the end of the last week, Nina has just flirted her way past the last checkpoint to get into the party. Inej does not have the same social skills, we'll say, and cannot flirt her way past. So Inej gets taken back to the first checkpoint to sort of be checked. Like, her identity has to be re-verified. So she's like, shit, before this guard guy suspects me and like makes me go back, she like slips into the crowd and goes into the party because she's like, if he thinks she's suspicious, obviously if I'm with her, I'm also suspicious. So she like slips into the crowd. She's wearing this really elaborate fur coat and she like loses it to seem to like blend in and be less conspicuous. she goes into the ballroom. She sees Kaz and Matthias like up on the second level, and she doesn't like do anything in their direction. She doesn't like gesture, anything like that. But she also goes upstairs to sort of get a better view and lay of the land and like see the crowds. Her goal, she's trying to figure out. So like they all came in for Boyul Bear, but they don't know where he is. So I guess Nina's sort of task is to try and find somebody that she thinks would know where he is, and then get them to tell her where they are, where he is, where he's being kept. So she sees the Fjerdan queen like standing over on one side, and she's like, nah, that's no good because she'll be too protected. But then she sees another group of like high profile military men. And it's like, oh, there's like a little pack of them. So she's like, oh, well, if anyone knows where Boyul Bear is, it's one of these guys. I love that she's like standing over there, and I guess she looks like a prostitute, I'm assuming.
Well, of course she does, because she's still wearing the dress of the Menagerie girls. Yeah.
Well, like that's the design, right? She's supposed to look like a prostitute, so she looks like a prostitute. So some random dude comes over and like propositions her right away, like let's go upstairs or something like that, and she just uses her powers immediately to make him pass out.
Perfect.
Which I love.
I wish I had these powers.
I know, right? Like if anybody did something that you were not cool with, you could just be like, drop you like a stone. It's amazing. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, he had a little too much to drink.
Yeah. And that was her excuse. Like some missus came over and like didn't come over, passed by after and was like, and she was like, oh, he drank too much. And I'm like, you've been at this party for 10 minutes. Anyway. So she leaves the guy just on the floor. Like she don't care about him.
No.
Why would she? She starts to make her way over to the group of military men that were clustered. She grabs like a glass of champagne, and she sort of positions herself in a way where one of the soldiers accidentally hits her and spills her drink all over her. And a few of the other soldiers sort of grab her and like help her. Everyone's like, oh, all the men are like, oh my God, are you okay? So a few of the men are like trying to help her out and like help her try and right herself. And the soldier like apologizes. But she said that she sort of had as her target a general who's in the center of the group. So I don't know if she like makes eye contact with him or something to sort of make him be like, oh, this lady needs my help. She did the damsel in distress thing very well.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the general, like, he does see her. He does, like, come over and he orders the soldier that spilled her champagne to go get her another glass. And he's, like, got the worst pickup line ever. He tells her she looks pale and that she should rest in one of the upper rooms off her feet. And I'm like, how about a little dinner first? Like, I know... Like, I know the idea is that she's a prostitute. I understand. But, like, literally, you're just going to go over and say, come upstairs with me?
Also, like, just if that's your plan, just be forward about it. I don't know. Like, if that is what you actually think is going to work here, just be like, let's go to the room. Don't be like, oh, you should go take a lie down because your poor face is way too pale. Your pallor. Like, no. So what, you're saying you would rather someone come up to you and be like, hey, can you come have sex with me now? 100%, yeah. If you're a prostitute, if you work in this profession, then yes. This profession? As if you're a member? Yeah. See, I wish they would beat around the bush a little bit more. Like, not be more coy about it. Like, you're already being obvious but also being not obvious. But, like, I just wish they would, like, chat with her first. Like, be like, oh, so sorry. Are you enjoying the party? Like, what's your hometown like? Just, like, a little bit of small talk before you are like, sex, now. Yeah. See, I hate small talk and would rather die. So I'd prefer if they were just immediately like, this is what I want, let's go. And I'd be like, yes, this is my job.
Yeah. Anyway. So Nina's sort of like, she's sort of being a little bit coy here and being like, oh, well, maybe a turn about the room wouldn't be so bad. I don't know why I assume they all have weird.
This is Pride and Prejudice times now.
Yeah.
We've gone back.
Anyway, so also I'm fairly positive I can do a better British accent than that. I'm not going to attempt it, but I know that was horrible. If anybody is in the UK listening, I'm so sorry. But yeah, so I guess they're about to take a turn about the room and someone interrupts them. And when Nina looks to see who it is, she sees that it's dun 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 Jarl Brum. So it's good old Jarl. So he was like the worst of the worst Grisha hunter on the face of the planet. He's like systematically gone after them. He was actually on the boat that Nina was when she had originally been taken by Druskele, like the year prior. So she thought he had drowned and like died at sea.
Like you would.
Because everybody did.
They didn't see him afterwards, which seems like I understand that the ocean is a wide and vast place, but you can't laugh at me for that. But you'd think that you would see
somebody else flailing about.
Yeah, I think it did happen at night, but like it just seems so wild. Did they have like a helicopter there ready to just save him? I just don't understand. Also, helicopters aren't a thing in this world, and I realized that was the joke. But
anyway,
don't know.
Yeah, but besides the point, Nina is shook. She is shooketh.
Yeah,
because she thought he was dead, and he's a monster. Anyway, rewind back to Jesper's POV. So, him and Wylan are still working on breaking the chain. And they're getting frustrated because it's taking them so long. Like, they only have until a certain time to break the chain. And it's taking them a long time. Jesper sort of admits to Wylan that while he loves guns, he doesn't love killing people. And Wylan admits that he doesn't really like chemistry, either like in his bomb making, he does chemistry, but he likes music and math.
That's sweet. Music and math have a connection that I don't understand as a math magician, but apparently.
Did you say what I think you just said?
I did, yes.
I
am a
love
math
it.
Magician.
I love it.
But yeah, some people that do math that aren't me can see the connection, but I can't really see it. Not that it's not there, but just a comment.
Yeah, I'm surprised you're not more musical, to be honest.
It's a lot of remembering. I played the violin at one point, and like I do have a guitar, but my memory's shit. Math has nothing to do with memory, so other than fucking pure math. Pure math can suck a D.
Great. I don't know what that is.
It's the lesser of the maths.
Okay. Anyway, they actually continue to have a really cute moment here. So, like, not only are they admitting to each other, like, hey, I like guns, but I don't like killing people. Hey, I don't like chemistry, but I like music and math. Like, they're having a cute little moment. Jesper sort of, like, it seems to me like it was one of those things of him trying to be like, I wonder what his, like, sexual preference is. Because Jesper's like, too bad you can't talk to girls in equations. And it's sort of like, you were fishing for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was sort of like a Nick and Charlie scenario when he's like, so who do you have a crush on? Do you have a crush on anyone? Yes, I do. Oh, what's she like then? He's
Only
and,
she?
and then Nick's like, what? Who says it's a girl? So it's sort of like that to me. So Jesper says, too bad you can't talk to girls in equations. And Wylan responds with, just girls?
Which I think is an amazing, like, he's a quiet guy. I'm just so proud of him that he said it out loud.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I just loved it.
they must have been feeling like, he must have noticed the chemistry.
Oh, for sure. Because, well, Jesper said to him, "You're much cuter when you're smart," or whatever. So like there was so many flirty moments, and we obviously don't get every moment of every second in this book. So there's probably more that we don't know about, but just love it. Big fan.
Anyway, Jesper even responds then to this with, no, not just girls. And like, just them sort of being like, maybe each other?
Maybe.
So they are all using like this big clock to tell the time. Like, I guess it chimes every hour on the hour. So they're using this to sort of synchronize their movements. So it's called the Elder Clock. It chimes 11, and that's their signal to disable the mechanism. So they break the chain, and they disable the gate. And again, leaves us then. Like, we don't hear anything. It's like, psych, you don't need to know what happens right yet.
No, and it's such a hard part in this book because we don't know anything about the plan going forward. So it's like, why are they doing this? Like, what's even happening? Cliffhangers hit a bit harder when it's like that.
Yeah. So next we get Inej's POV. So remember, last we saw with her, she was being taken away by the guards back to the first checkpoint. So she's waiting back there with all the other detained guests. And she's sort of trying to put on her best, like, posh lady thing and be like, I demand to be taken to the next checkpoint at once. When, like, all of a sudden, I don't know why, but Tante Heleen shows up and, like, sort of gives up her identity. And she's like, that's not one of my girls. That's Inej, and she's here with Kaz Brecker, and they're, like, notorious thieves. So, you guys, they're here for something. You guys better get on that quick. So, like, she's totally giving her up.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like, what is going to happen to her? Because she has given her up. She said, she's not mine. Like, she has completely let her, like, I sort of thought maybe she would, like, hide it to sort of have one up on Inej and be like, I kept your identity a secret, you owe me, sort of a scenario. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't. She full on goes, hey, that's Inej. She shouldn't be here. So, anyway. Heleen wants to know where, I guess, her actual Sully girl is. And, like, puts her hands on Inej to sort of, like, shake it out of her. Like, where's my other girl? And all of a sudden, Inej feels this, like, I'm calling it, she felt like this power, but not an actual magic-y Grisha power, but, like, just an emotional, like, sense of self and worth. Yeah. And she's like, how dare this bitch put her hands on me? So she twists Heleen's arm until it comes off of her. Anyway, at that moment, the guards are then like, oh my god, Heleen is, like, she matters. So, like, they grab Inej to, like, get her hands off of her. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, Tutaku. I don't know why. I felt I had to say it.
I liked it.
Black protocol is enacted, and Inej is starting to be taken away.
Wild.
They sort of insinuate that they're going to torture her and hang her. And
probably put her on the spikes like Pekka Rollins' team.
Probably. And Heleen is sort of, like, laughing as they take her away and is told, like...
Just like, that you... just hate her so much more than you ever could have. Like, you're just a jealous bitch.
Yeah, she's terrible. So Heleen is like laughing at her and being like, see, I told you you'd wear my silks again, but now you're gonna hang in them. And it's just sort of like, is that necessary?
Wow.
Like, Heleen, is it? Anyway.
Probably not, but here we are.
Yeah. Anyway, so again, we leave this scene. So it keeps jumping very quickly between all of our characters. So now we're at Nina's POV again. So remember, Jarl Brum just sort of made himself known to her, and she's trying really hard to stay calm and hoping he doesn't recognize her. Like, she has she has tailored herself a little bit, I think. So that, like, her hair is red, not normal brown, and like I think her face is a little bit different.
Yeah, she stole the, which is sad, but she stole the red from the actual girl's hair and like left her white haired.
Anyway, so she's trying to be like, he can't recognize me. He can't recognize me. It's okay. They chat for a bit, and you can tell that they're sort of being flirty. So she's sort of talking to him and being like, oh, wouldn't it be thrilling to see a Grisha? And he sort of offers to show her one. She's
That's
really
your first
subtle.
Red flag. That's your first red flag.
That is your first. But like, she does do it really well and subtly. Like, it's not like she's like, hey, have you ever seen a Grisha? Can you show me one? Like, no, she's a lot more subtle than that, but still.
It's, a bit subtle.
Yeah. So he walks her out of the ballroom past their like sacred tree, and they just like discuss the holiday, and like they discuss the Druskelle, and just having like small talk. And she's flirting with him that whole time. Even though she says that she hates him, hates his guts, like every fiber of his being, she hates him. But she's still flirting with him so that she can get through the door and find what she needs to find. So he's taking her to the treasury, and she sees that he has this like special chain with the key on it. So I guess only he has access to the treasury.
I feel like there's probably other people that do too, but like only special people. He can't be the only one. That'd be a terrible business plan.
Yeah. Anyway, so he brings her into the treasury and he says, oh, actually, we've converted this into a laboratory. So he brings her to a cell, and there's a young boy in there, and he's strung out on Yurda Parem. They go to another cell and look at another one. And Jarl Brum admits that at this point in time, they have about 30 Grisha imprisoned in the cells. Yeah. And she's sort of still, because he's like, do you want me to give them the Yurda and we can see what they'll do? And she's like, no, it's not really good when they're like high like this. Like, I was hoping to see one that, still had fight left in them or whatever.
Had some will to live.
Yeah. So they're still talking and stuff, and all of a sudden he offers, like, should we go somewhere private? And she agrees. And she's thinking, like, oh, well, he's going to lead me to an office or something like that. And then she can use her powers on him privately to find out where Bo Yule Bear is. Because the whole point, too, of Heartrenders is they can calm you right down, and then they can ask you questions and get the truth out of you, essentially.
Yeah.
So she plans on doing this to him in a private location. So while they head inside the room, like, he holds the door open for her, and she walks in, only to find it's not an office. It's a cell.
Ugh.
And he closes the door and locks her in. So he recognized her all along.
Of course he did.
I know, the jackass.
I hate it.
Yeah. So she's sort of like, oh my God, let me out, you jackass. And she's about to use her powers on him because she can use her powers through a wall, like through the glass.
Mm.
But he's like, they have a button installed outside of every cell that releases Yurda Parem into the cell if she attempts to use her power on him. So he said he would press the button and release the Yurda Parem. She knows that it's super toxic and super
Addictive.
Yes, thank you. So she obviously does not want any of it.
Mm-hmm.
So he sort of gives this like traditional bad guy speech of how like, oh, I knew it was you immediately. And like, did you think I wouldn't know? And all this stuff. And then he also says that like vengeance is not his to take, like vengeance on her. And I'm like, what did she ever do to you?
Yeah.
That you think you need vengeance for? It's ridiculous. All of a sudden, Matthias comes into view. He sort of insinuates, Jarl does, insinuates that vengeance is Matthias's to take.
Mm-hmm.
And she is really shocked to see Matthias there. And he sort of said that, like, even though there's no way for him to be Druskele without her pardon, he says he'll find another way to serve Fjerda. And now that she's in the ice court, like, his debt is paid. Like, they're even. Because she locked him in jail, now he locked her in jail.
Mm-hmm.
So, like...
Which is, like, a big turn. That's a big twist that we just experienced.
Yeah. It's huge. Like, it's Matthias helping Jarl the whole time. Which is wild.
Yeah, and we were in his head a few times, and we did think that this was a possibility, but we never thought that it would be against Nina.
No. Well, like, because he always said, like, he was always very wishy-washy about it. Like, oh, I should do that. But he never actually does it.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, then, so, like, the two men walk away. Like, Jarl Brum and Matthias walk away from her cell and just leave her in there. Terrifying. And then, all of a sudden, we get Matthias's POV. So, he says that, he tells Brum that he thought he was dead. And he said that he had to endure a lot to prove that he was loyal to Nina, which included letting her tailor him. Which, like, Jarl Brum is like, oh my God, that's disgusting. You let her use her witch powers on you. Gross, and blah, blah, blah.
Which is so hypocritical in, like, 5 seconds. Just wait 5 seconds and tell me again.
Yeah. So Matthias is sort of asking him, like, how long has the lab been here? And Brum's like, yeah, no, I've had it built for 15 years because this is where the Grisha go when they're sentenced. And Matthias is sort of confused because he's talking about, like, keeping some Grisha and using the Yurda Parem to sort of control them and use them as, like, weapons or an army or whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Matthias is confused because, according to him growing up, he thought that Brum wanted all the Grisha to be eradicated. When that's not true. He doesn't want to eradicate them. He just wants to control them.
Of course.
Anyway, so Brum sort of insinuates that, like, all Grisha are monsters. And Matthias is like, but, like, this girl, like, she spent a whole year trying to free me from prison. And that's not really the action of a monster. And Brum sort of has to say, like, yeah, she may show you kindness, but, like, nature is still evil. And she's from nature. So, like, maybe she can be kind, but her species cannot.
Hey.
Yeah. Matthias sort of admits then that Boyul Bear is in the treasury, and Brum says they're going to use Yurda Parem on Nina to get another statement from her to indicate Matthias's innocence so that he can get the pardon even though he just said he didn't need it. I guess they want it.
Yeah, well, it gives him everything he wanted. If he gets the pardon, it's exactly what Kaz was holding over him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he'll be back to his old life. He'll be Drusilla and reinstated. So
Yeah. So Matthias is like starting to think about this idea, and he's thinking he doesn't feel the same way about the Grisha as he used to. And he says he knows like they're really all human, like they're capable of good or evil, depending on the person. So he sort of gives Brum a hug because Brum's like, "Oh, welcome back, son." Like he's a de facto father figure for him. And he hugs him, and he hugs him so tight in this like weird hold, that it knocks him out.
which is what we needed.
Yeah, but it was sort of unexpected, wasn't it? Like he was just like, "Aw, hug. Now I'm knocking you out."
Yes, it was completely unexpected. Like but I think that's the way the book was written. You weren't supposed to know which way he was going to go.
Yeah. Well, it's true. Like, we literally just found out that he was on Brum's side the whole time, and now he's knocking Brum out. So whose side is Matthias really on?
Yeah, I think that's just the mystery of the book that they were trying to keep. But I appreciated the scene.
Yeah. So he sort of feels to himself that, like, well, now I'm a true traitor because I've just knocked out, like, this really prominent figure of the Druskele. So after he knocks Brum out, he gets his gate key and he goes and gets Nina. He then tells her what happened in the ballroom. So he explains that Kaz and him saw Jarl Brum and had to like think of a plan super, super quick to save Nina. And they did. So Matthias sort of intercepted Brum because he was gonna go over and talk to
Nina.
Yep, Nina, thank you. So Jarl Brum was gonna go talk to him, but then Matthias was like, yoink, and like intercepted him halfway. And he apparently told him everything about
Nina's plan.
Yeah,
He made it all about Nina.
Yeah, told him everything about Nina and all that stuff, but didn't think about, like, he didn't include anything about Kaz or Jesper or Wylan or Inej. He made it seem like Nina was doing the whole thing, just the two of them. So he also sort of realizes at this point that Matthias was taught to do some stuff, like probably some bad stuff. Like their whole war on the Grisha is sort of a little bit weird. But he was taught to do all that and taught to do it for the sake of his country. But Matthias sort of realizes at this point that Jarl Brum liked to do those, like, they didn't do it because they had to for their country. He did it because he liked it. So it's sort of like they're thinking that he's a bit of a sicko at this point.
Yeah.
It's nice that, like, it was his father figure who he really respected, and then all of a sudden he's lost his respect for him. So I don't know. I like that.
Yeah.
They do lock Brum in a cell and they take his key away. So he should be stuck for a little bit.
We hope so.
We hope, yeah. So Jesper and Wylan were back to their POV for this next bit. So they just blew up and disabled that gate. So now they're making their way to the roof and they see soldiers on their way. They're heading in a different direction than some people. And I don't know why that does. Like, that alone makes a difference. But it turns out that these soldiers that they're seeing walking down the road are not soldiers at all, but shoe tide makers. Really, what they're doing is they're attacking like these shoe tide makers. So they're shoe Grisha are attacking everybody in, like, I feel like it's everybody that they deem to be like working for the government or soldiers or something like that. They've come in to like take over these shoe tide makers.
Yeah.
And so in order to kill the guards, what they decide to do is they do an interesting technique to kill the soldiers. They pull all the blood out of their bodies, which is just delicious.
It's very reminiscent of what Rhys-Anne does in
Yeah.
Akhtar.
You're right. It is.
Yeah.
So I guess Jesper and Wylan again. So like the shoe are just coming around, these shoe type makers are just coming around killing all the soldiers because they just want to get in. So they're doing it brute force style.
Yeah.
Jesper and Wylan are mistaken for guards because they're wearing guards clothing. And they
Imagine.
I know, it's wild. But they don't speak shoe. So they
Yeah.
can't very well like explain what they're doing there. So instead, Jesper uses the metal shavings that they got off of the metal chain and throws them at the time makers with his fabricator powers. Not just a regular throw, like a super duper throw. And then they just leave those Shu to die. Why not?
That's how it goes.
We jump back again to Nina's POV. So we're seeing a lot of different people coming out now.
Yeah.
So Matthias, like we just saw, Matthias like comes into the room, unlocks the door, and comes to get her. They hug and they have a moment, and I love the moment.
Yes.
So the moment is he sort of tells her the vow of the Druskele to Fjerda. So I guess whenever a new Druskele is initiated into the ranks, they have to swear this oath to protect Fjerda.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess because he's not marrying Fjerda, obviously, he instead recites the vow of Druskele to her. So,
which is so cute.
I know. I even wrote down the quote. It's, I have been made to protect you. Only in death will I be kept from this oath.
Aww.
I know, so cute. So, Nina tells Matthias after he makes this pledge to her, he says that when they get out of there, she's going to kiss him stupid.
Aww.
Which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
So they find Beau Yulbear's cell, and instead of there being a middle-aged man inside, there's a 14, 15-year-old boy. And he sort of admits that his dad had died earlier, and I guess they they want him to create his dad's formula because they haven't been having as much success. So they break the kid out of jail and they destroy the lab because they don't want the kid to be able to make any more samples, like any more of the Yurta-Parem. So they're like, hey, let's destroy the lab. And the kid's like, I can make it explode.
Yeah. They also don't want the Fjordans to like look at what he's done so far and be able to figure anything out.
Yeah, for sure. The kids are like, oh yeah, I can build a bomb. And they're like, oh my God, are you Grisha too? And he is. So the child is also Grisha, along with, I think he said his dad was too.
Yeah. Yeah. And they said that the Parem is actually, his dad was trying to make something to like hide his Grisha powers so that nobody would figure it out. And he accidentally came up with this instead, which is not the same thing, sir.
No. So they set up an explosion in the lab and they're like, they run out to try and avoid the blast, but they do get knocked down on their bellies, I guess. They look around and there are Druskele everywhere. And they don't really like, everyone's like, oh my God, why are there so many here? Like, it's sort of a bit odd for there to be that many there. And they sort of like, they realize who Nina and Kuwei are. and they shoot, if anyone's seen the show, that weird shooty ball thing that goes around Nina in the show. I picture a similar thing like that here with Kuwei and Nina. Like, they're all escaping. They know for a fact that those two people exist and are Grisha, so they're going to try and catch them.
Yeah. I didn't connect those two things, but yeah, that's exactly the same mechanism as this book. I didn't notice it when I watched the show. Good catch.
Thank you. So they sort of, the guy that takes them into custody, the guy that's sort of in the lead, is like a really good friend of Matthias. Like, they know each other quite well.
Mm-hmm.
But Matthias also gets arrested, so they're like chatting, and they start to go past this like weird tree, and all of a sudden they hear like a pop 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 pop, and the guy that was holding the cables, holding Nina and Kuwei in, like, unable to use their magic, died. Because I guess that's who got the pop, 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 pop. Like, we're assuming that it's some form of gunfire and somebody got fired. So, all of a sudden, like, after a lot of musing and, you know, him hawing, the tree all of a sudden, like, starts to, I'm going to say, come down. I don't think it's actually going down. I think it's secure, but it's opening up a little bit. I don't really know how to explain it. I picture a hole where the stump of the tree would be. But I don't know if that's...
I thought that it was like, I thought that the tree just tipped over. I thought it was like in the road.
Oh, you thought it full on fell.
Yeah.
I didn't get that, but maybe I'm wrong.
Oh. I don't know. We hear more about the baleen now, and I know I'm wrong about that, but I kept my beliefs for a very long time. It's all about interpretation.
Yeah. Anyway, so the tree sort of starts to come down, and all of a sudden Kaz sort of like lifts his mask up, and he's like, "Hooray, look, it's me." And all of a sudden he just shoves people in the hole under the tree, like just flat out shoves them. No warning, nothing.
Yep.
So now we're switching to Kaz's POV again. So he follows Nina around, like outside, when they were outside doing that little walk around.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he like has to hide behind ice sculptures because he's just, you know, not stealthy. He says, like, he swallowed earlier in the night root bombs, chloro pellets, and an extra set of lockpicks before the prison break. That whole thing. So he has this issue where he has swallowed these items and he has to regurgitate them so that they don't start to digest.
Which
so,
is
like,
insane.
I
That
know.
is insane.
It's like every hour, every half hour since he's been at the prison, he's been taking time to throw up so that the stuff they need, the bombs, the chloro pellets, and the lockpicks, the stuff that they need, they can get like that, which isn't going to work if Kaz has to be like, 1 moment, please. Oh, sorry, that was a pen. Let me try again. Like, you know what I mean? It's just...
It's wild.
Yeah. So, he is wild.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. So, apparently, when the explosion hit, he had so far been winging it. Like, nothing had gone according to his plan, for them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, he was improvising. Then the explosion hit, which he did not expect. And then there was this hole where the tree used to be, and he sort of deduced by himself the hole under the tree led to the river. So he started like doing all these thoughts and stuff in his head about how he deduced that there was like a river under the tree. Because like obviously they didn't know that wasn't in the plans. It was almost, do you know what, it almost reminded me of like an escape tunnel sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like you hopped in this hole and there's like a little slide that you go down until you reach the water.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I get it. Like they're not talking to their god, they're talking to water, because water babbles and water talks and water's moving. So like that's what they're really talking about. So first, I don't know.
I think we talked about it last week maybe, where they said Matthias said that they bury bodies so that they're part of the waterway. So like it's a whole connection to their belief.
Yeah. So he figured out this whole like connection of the sacred tree to water to their god thing. So he all of a sudden shoved a baleen into Kauai's mouth, and then essentially they all jumped down the hole and into the river. The water is cold AF. Like it is cold water. And I guess he's trying to he's bit down on the baleen, so he's got some air. But all he can think about is Inej and how much he wants her to touch his face again, even though it disgusted him.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of like, if it disgusted you, why do you want it done? But like, I actually know why.
I know.
Anyway, so we sort of then hear his story about the limp now, because he's being like tossed and turned under the water. So he's not going anywhere. So he's internal dialoguing. So
it's true.
So he's got this limp that we all know about. He's got the cane and he limps. So he admits that when he was 15, he robbed a bank. And it was the bank that helped to con him. So he stole 50,000 Kruger.
Seems like a lot.
It does seem like a lot. But also at the same time, not really. However, he broke his leg in that process by like climbing down. Was it like he had to like climb off a roof or something? Yeah. So he busted up his leg. And ever since then, I guess it just didn't heal right. So now he has to limp. He said that like gloves are his one weakness, and I'm sort of thinking to myself, no duh.
Yes.
But anyway, he's thinking about his glovey hands, and he thinks how he'd like to touch, like for Inej to touch his face and for him to touch her. But like he still, I don't know, it's like he hates it, but he likes it at the same time. It's really weird.
Yeah. Which I guess if you went through that trauma and couldn't stand the touch of people, but then found someone you loved, you'd have the same conflict.
I guess I would. But I don't want to admit it.
Of course not.
So he says that he's really thankful for Inej because he sort of made her believe in, or because of her, he sort of believes in magic and like how people help each other and all this sort of thing. So like he was like, well, she's way better than me. She's a better person than I am.
Yeah.
So like he's still underwater, and we've had about like 10 minutes. The baleen, I think, is like starting to run out. And he doesn't want to open his mouth and let the water in because he knows that's a surefire way to decease.
Yes.
So he's like trying not to open his mouth to keep the water out, but all of a sudden he breathes in and takes a breath full of water. And that's where we leave Kaz's POV.
Of course. Cliffhangers abound.
Yes. So now we go back to Inej's POV again. So she was just nasty to Tante Heleen. She was a bit bitchy to the guards and all that jazz. So she's being taken to, I guess they're like Grand Inquisitor or something like that.
Yeah.
So apparently there are like only 2 guards going. So she sort of like acts immediately. So she's like, I cannot go and be tortured. So I got to say something and do something now.
Mhm.
So she trips up one guard and then breaks his nose. And then the other one is about to get her when Jesper and Wylan appear and save the day.
Yay!
So, yeah, way to go, Inej. She did great. Or Jesper asks her if she found a diamond big enough. We don't even know what for yet.
Mm.
So Kaz says he has given her two objectives. First thing that they need is a diamond, but again, we still don't know why they need a diamond.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? And they have to get back to their, I'm not going to say side, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. To this corridor, basically.
Yeah.
That they're in right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're in this room, and like, it doesn't really tell us the significance of the room at all, but they're trying to make a drill bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, essentially, they're trying to get Inej strapped in and sent out a window so that she can rappel down the building and into these crazy ass tanks.
Mm-hmm.
So they like rappel down the building. She like does this wicked old like shot out the window and like scoops it around. It's really cool. So they get down the building. They shoot at the wall a few more times, like the front gate wall, and then they drive their tank through it, like right out of the ice core, like right into the night.
That'll do it.
It's just a bit bizarre, though, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
there's just a tank with the keys in it, just sitting in the porch, and it's usable.
Yeah, exactly. It's the whole like they have it all on display. It's very dumb.
Yeah.
So now we jump over to Nina's point of view, and they made it out. So it's Nina, Kaz, Matthias, and Kuwei, who jumped into the base of the tree, and they made it to dry land. But Kaz is unconscious, which is not ideal. I did find this scene kind of funny because Matthias is a bit pissy, I'm going to say. He's like, he starts doing CPR, but he keeps saying that he should let Kaz die because he's just like, he just destroyed the sacred tree of Fjorda. And he's also just, an asshole in general. So...
and he like let them loose into like this raging river, almost killed them all.
That too, yeah. I guess that's one part.
Poor Kuwei.
I know, poor kid. He just threw the baleen in his mouth and he wasn't even like, don't panic, you'll be fine. He just like shoved him in. It is interesting that Kaz is the only one that like passes out. I feel like he did panic, and that's not really in his character.
Is it because Kaz is sickly and frail?
Oh, maybe. That makes sense. So then Nina starts using her power to try to get Kaz's heart going, and also starts giving him mouth to mouth. And obviously he wakes up during this, which is worst case scenario. He doesn't like being touched, and he doesn't know where he is when he wakes up, and he starts to freak out. Nina kind of just like explains to him that they're at the ice court, and Kaz kind of remembers himself, and he's like, oh shit, we're fine. And they all just get up and start walking. So, nobody cares about trauma around here.
I know, it's like he almost died, but can you imagine, like, what happened? I almost died? Okay, let's continue.
Onward and upward, friends.
And, like, no hypothermia, or, like,
right?
He's in wet clothes. Well, they're all in wet clothes. Like, none of this is a concern?
Yeah. I don't know if they ever talk about it, but I just assume that there's snow everywhere and
Yeah.
ice. But I don't know if that's true. No
Oh
idea.
my.
Um, so then they start hearing a rumbling coming from the ice court, which is behind them. And it's Jesper, Inej, and Wylan. And they are pumped, obviously. Um, until, and I kind of envision it like, you know,
They're
those
in
movies when you see one person coming and you're like, yay. And then there's a whole wave of bad people just show up over the crest of a hill behind them.
but
Like,
they're in a tank. Like
yes.
they're in a tank. So like I don't know. It's a little bit better than just like running in person.
Well, yes. Yeah, it is. But everybody else is also in tanks, which is
Yeah,
like, of
that's true.
course.
Yeah.
Uh, but then I guess the tank gets to the one side of the bridge and Jesper blows it up with his tank gun.
Genius. Like this whole plan is genius.
It is, yeah. Which is like they came up with it in like 2 seconds on a rooftop.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
it's kind of wild.
And they also didn't talk like I feel like Kaz came up with a lot of this and just didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, he was like, get some jewels and do this. And he didn't really tell everybody every part of the plan. He just told them what they needed to know.
Yeah.
But it worked.
It did.
They end up grabbing onto the side of the tank and they keep going. But then when they get close to the harbor, it's, of course, guarded by 200 soldiers that they weren't expecting. And then a heartrender comes forward and they're very clearly begging for Parem.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, our core group of crows know that they're fucked because they know that this heartrender is going to get the Parem and then be able to just mist them, I'll say, for lack of a better word. Misting being a term in ACOTAR books. So Kaz kind of admits that he's finally run out of tricks.
Mm-hmm.
And Inej and Wylan agree that they would rather die than be like taken alive as prisoners, which makes sense. Like, obviously they wouldn't want to be thrown back into the prison.
I agree with you, but at the same time, it's just I don't think it's something that 17 and 18-year-old children are qualified. Like, it's not a decision I think they're qualified to make.
No,
just
that's true.
Personal opinion. Like, I'd rather die than be taken alive. Like, kid, you don't know that.
Yeah.
Like, what if they just turn you to their side, give you a hot meal, and call it a day?
Yeah, because that's what's going to happen here. They literally, like, spiked Pekka Rollins' teams on the front gate. But they're going to take these kids. They're going to make them Feardens.
They're going to adopt them out.
Yeah, well, you know what? We don't know, and neither do they. But a voice starts to count down the time that they have left to surrender. So they can surrender, I guess, and go to jail. And if they don't surrender, then they're going to get misted. But Nina asks Kuwei for some Parem, knowing that, like, if she uses it, she can save them all. And even if she, like, has to harm herself for it. So, like, we know the Parem she could become addicted to it. It could kill her, really, even just one dose. But she decides that it's worth it for everybody else to live, which is also one of those things that a child shouldn't really be deciding.
It's awfully nice of her.
It is awfully nice of her. Matthias obviously tries to stop her, and Inej tries to reason with her, but she kind of says, like, people don't always get addicted on the first dose, but the first dose is apparently the strongest, so she'll be more powerful than the other heartrender. We jump over to Matthias's point of view, and
he mad.
He is mad. Yeah,
he mad because he's just like, this is the only thing that bothers me, and I'm not saying the whole thing bothers me. Like, Nina, I get it. You're trying to save everybody. But, like,
Yeah.
Matthias has literally just come to this realization that he's essentially in love with you. He's forsaken his entire, like, essentially his entire sense of self for you. And now you're just going to risk it all, like, for...
Yeah, and when he went and saved her, he was like, I'll protect you forever, basically, with my whole being. And now there's nothing he can do to protect her. So he definitely feels shit about it as well. Yep. So Nina takes the Prem and she immediately just kills the Heartrender by exploding his eyes. Which I'm like,
what's with the eyes? What is everybody's obsession with eyes in this book?
Why are we doing this? There are other ways to kill people.
Just stop the heart.
Yeah. I don't think that was necessary.
Or, like, that's snap the neck. Like, something quick and painless.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because that's definitely not painless. And, like, I don't think it would be painless. I don't know.
To be fair, I don't know either. Like, I've never had my eyes exploded before.
Exactly.
I'm not 100% on that.
But I assume it's not painless, and, like, you'd think that she would care more about the Grisha having a painless death than, like, anybody else there. So it's kind of surprising and very graphic. But she does... It's just kind of... She tells the Grisha to be free as she explodes his eyes. So maybe it is the best way to kill somebody. I don't know.
Maybe.
Nina tells the soldiers, so there's 200 of them, to stop, lay down their arms, and sleep. And they just do.
Great.
Which is wild. Just like having a nap in front of the harbor. So they have to, like, walk to the harbor because they can't bring their tank through all these people. So they're just, like, walking over the soldiers, trying to get to their boat. When Jarl Broom yells to Matthias and calls him a traitor and tells him that none of them will leave alive. And you're like, I don't think that's true because Nina's on fire here. Just seems very... Why do you think that, sir?
Yeah.
Nina says that for Matthias, she'll give them one chance to leave them be. And Jarl Broom says that there's nothing she can do because, like, apparently all of their clothes is enforced with fabricator steel so that she can't take control of their bodies, basically. Which is interesting that they already have something against, like, the Perem and Grisha. Like, they already have a defense against it.
But is it... I don't think that's... They've had this war against Grisha, so it would make sense that they would get tools that would help them be resistant to Grisha powers.
Yeah, I guess it works against all Grisha. It's not just Perem.
Right.
But it's just... It is weird. Because you'd think that they would just wear it more often. Like, wouldn't you just wear it all the time if you're that afraid of Grisha? Maybe. But it's probably one of those things where only the big shots got it. And, like, you know, of course. Matthias then gets shot straight in the chest by Jarl Broom, which is his, like, father figure, basically. So it's like a double stab. Mm-hmm. A stab in the back and a shot in the heart. And Matthias just watches the bullet come back out of his chest, and Nina just heals him before anything. Like, he doesn't even crumple.
Right.
So
that was a cool moment.
Yeah, and I've read the book before, but I actually forgot about that section, and I was like, "What the fuck? He gets shot?" And then I was like, "Oh, yes, I understand." I liked this part too. She then just starts walking towards Jarl Broom and the rest of the, like, Druskella that are there. And they just start to shoot her. But, like, as the bullets hit her, she pulls them out and heals herself. And I really want to see that on screen. Yeah. Like, I think that would be so cool to watch.
I just want to go, like, Like, yes, Nina.
Yes, that too.
Like, you go, girl.
Yeah, she is powerful.
Yeah.
She then, I guess, realizes that she can use the 200 soldiers behind her, and she has control over them. So she gets them to get up and go to Broom and the other Driskella, and they like take the masks off of them, and so that she can control them, so that Nina can start controlling them, so they don't have the fabricator metal in front of them.
Right.
Matthias tells Nina that she taught him to be better. So she does take control of them, and like, I guess we don't really know what she's doing because we're in Matthias's head, we're not in her head. But I'm assuming that she's like putting pressure in their brains is kind of what it seems like, because they all just start yelling. And Matthias tells her that she taught him to be a better person. So maybe like all of these Driskella can also be taught to be better, and that she should let them live. Which kind of gets through to her, and she's like, yeah, I guess. And she does do like one last little attack on Jarl Broom. I don't really know what she does, but she tells Matthias that he's going to be very bald. So anyway, they are able to go get on the boat and just sail away. We jump over to Inej's point of view, and they all start talking about Nina and like asking Kuwei how long she has before the Prem's going to be out of her system, and like what is going to happen. And Kuwei says that she's going to have withdrawals. Nina kind of refuses to talk about it anymore because she doesn't want to deal with that right now. She knows that it's gonna be terrible, but she's like, I'm done with this conversation, basically. We do get a little tidbit that Kuwei does have some more, though, which is interesting and may come up again in book 2.
Terrible idea, Kuwei.
Yes.
Put it away.
Yeah. Inej, I guess Nina goes over to look out over the side of the boat, and Inej walks towards her, and Nina hears her coming, which is very different from how people normally are around Inej. And it kind of shocks her. But Nina explains that she could hear her heartbeat, and that apparently everyone's heartbeat is different, so she could tell who was behind her. Nina also tells her that she can hear a change in Kaz's breath every time he looks at Inej. So
aww, like, we know that
it's cute.
He loves her in his way.
Exactly. And it's like not noticeable to a regular person, which is just cute. And I'm sure he doesn't realize he's doing it.
Yeah.
Nina and Inej kind of have a cute moment together where Inej tells Nina that everything's going to be okay, and that soon they're going to be rich enough to buy the menagerie and then burn it down, which that'd be pretty cool.
I think Nina she should make sure the girls are outside first.
No, obviously not. Yes, she should make sure the girls are outside first.
Maybe not Heleen, though.
Yeah, put her in her room with her shittiness and burn her to the ground too.
Yep.
Nina then uses her power to tailor the peacock feather off of Inej's arm, and she also heals the part of Inej's arm where it was kind of like very badly scarred, because all she had done the first time was like get somebody to chop off the tattoo with a butcher's knife. So now Inej's arm is back to like basically perfect skin, which Inej isn't used to and kind of finds it a bit odd. Nina then turns to leave, but is waylaid by Kaz, who apparently asks her for something, but we don't hear what it is. then Kaz comes over to talk to Inej, and
Woo!
Inej asks him, it does get woo a
Mm-hmm.
tiny, tiny bit,
Tiny
but
bit
then it's
woo.
bad again.
Yeah.
Inej asks how they're going to make the trade with the Merchant Council. And apparently the plan is to use a little island that smugglers and slavers use. And Kaz says that Van Eck actually suggested the location, which Inej thinks is odd because he's supposed to be like an outstanding citizen. Like, why does he know about this place?
Yeah.
Which,
I mean, I feel like this is their teenagerness coming out because, like, all of us know as adults that a lot of people in politics are corrupt and a lot of people in leadership are corrupt to some extent. So, like, them being like, I wonder why he would suggest such a weird location. How does he know about this? He's a good guy. He shouldn't know that the slummy places exist. It's just a little bit like, come on.
yeah, it's a little bit childish.
It is.
Like, obviously he knows about it. I guess I would be surprised that he's okay with using it, but
yeah,
he's scummy.
He is scummy.
Inej then tells Kaz about her like newfound purpose. She's going to learn to sail, she's going to get a crew, and she's going to go after slavers. And he kind of comes back and he's like, you won't be able to hunt them all down. And she says that if she doesn't try, she won't hunt any down. Which is like really good advice. Like, it's a really good line. Like, if you don't try to hunt any of them down, yeah, you can't get them all, but you'll still get some. And then he says that he almost pities the slavers, which I think is like a bit of a cute line, but it's exactly what Inej kind of needed to hear because she wanted him to believe in her. She says that she is going to go find her family first. And she asks him if there was ever anyone else in his family. And he kind of makes a little joke about being a barrel bastard.
Mm-hmm.
And which is sad.
It
because
is.
He's not.
He's not, no.
Well, I guess
he's become one.
He's become one. He's a barrel orphan now, I would say. She asks him what he's going to do when he has the money and like when he has his vengeance. But like, what else does he want for his life? And he doesn't really answer. So she kind of goes to walk away and he grabs her hand. Obviously he still has his gloves on, people, like, not get crazy here. And he asks her to stay in Ketterdam with him.
Aww.
It is cute. And he says he wants her. And and she's just like, but how? Like, with all of your clothes on and no kissing, basically.
Yeah.
And then she tells him that it's not enough for her and she'll have him without his armor or not at all, which I absolutely love that line because I think she means his armor physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
And I just respect it so much because, like, she obviously has feelings for him too.
Yeah.
And I just love that she is a strong female character that doesn't need a love story. She knows her worth.
Yeah.
And she's not going to change because a guy finally said that he wants her. It's just good role model.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
and yeah, maybe not. Then this one instance, but like, it is obviously so sad too because Kaz has so much trauma. It's not really his fault that he can't offer her more. So like, I do feel bad for him too, but I don't know.
I know, and like, yeah, it's really unfortunate because like what you said, like it's not his fault he has all this trauma. It's not his fault he can't bear the touch. Like he obviously, it's not by choice. You know what I mean? Like, he obviously isn't choosing to not be able to stand people's touch. But like, at the same time, he needs to talk to her about it. I feel like if he told her what had happened to him and told her more about the situation with Jordy,
Yeah.
I think she probably would have been more open to, like, maybe attempting a relationship that didn't
Yeah.
have a physical component. And, like, again, he said earlier in this book that, like, she did touch him or, like, touched his cheek or something. And, like,
Yeah.
he didn't like it. Like, he said it did make his skin crawl, but at the same time, he liked it.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like with her, like, it could be a process. Like, they could learn, like, he could learn to appreciate her touch.
Yeah.
But obviously, if she doesn't know the source of that trauma, then what's she gonna do? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
she's just
But
trying
it's
to,
also,
sorry, she's just
sorry.
trying to do what's best for her.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it's also like they're 17.
Yeah.
Like, she can't give up this time in her life just for him. So I do see both sides, but I'm also like, if he goes to therapy and she goes and hunts slavers in 10 years' time, they're
Yeah.
going to come together and have a great relationship and it'll be physical.
Great. Lovely.
But obviously that's not going to happen either. But who knows? Who knows what'll happen?
Who knows what book 2 will bring?
Exactly. I do, because I've read it. But
That's true.
I can't go there yet. So then we cut back over to Nina's point of view, and it is not great. She is in a lot of pain, and she's clearly going through withdrawals.
Yeah.
Nina begs Matthias not to give her another dose, no matter how hard she asks for it, because she doesn't want to become like the other Grisha that they've seen, which is like completely understandable.
Yeah.
Matthias tells her that he won't let her die, and if the withdrawals are going to kill her, he can't make that promise. No, it's so, my heart. They have a cute moment too. I know there's many cute moments, but that's what my part is basically coming down to. But Nina touches his hair and holds his hand, even though it's like super painful for her to even do that. And they have a sweet moment where she asks him to stay to the end, and he says that he'll stay after. And he says that he'll take her back to Ravka because she wants to go back home.
Which is so sweet, because it's like, I feel like that was sort of his like promise of, even if you're dead, I'll bring you back to Ravka.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like super sad.
Sin.
But, and like, he's not safe in Ravka, but it's just so, it is very nice of him that he would promise that.
Yeah.
We jump over to Jesper's point of view again, and he is struggling again with the silent travel stuff. So the way out to Fjorda, Inej was dying, and now basically on their way back, Nina's dying. So it's really not been a great travel for any of them. Wylan has apparently been stationed helping Nina, and Kuwei has been acting oddly towards him. So he says that Kuwei will come up and stand by him on the ship to just hang out, but he doesn't say anything. So Jesper's just like, what the hell is going on?
It's so awkward.
It is. I'm like, that is so weird. And like, I know there's two things. There's an explanation, but then there's also the like, they do have a language difference.
Barrier,
so like, yeah. So I'm sure that that's what Jesper is assuming. Jesper also feels guilty about Nina because he's a Grisha too, and he could have taken Parem to try to help her. Because Kuwei says that like the only way that they'd be able to get the Parem out of her system is if another Grisha tried to take it out. But I'm like, then they'd both just be dying now. So I get why he feels guilty, but I'm also like, that you'd both be dying, so it's not really.
Well, he didn't. Maybe he just feels guilty mostly because he didn't offer.
Yeah.
Like, obviously he doesn't really want to do it, but because she so readily was like, I'm just going to take one for the team, he sort of feel like, oh, maybe I should have asked too.
Yeah. Which I do get, but then he's kind of like, but I'm no hero. And we're like, oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
So I guess they land at the harbor, and Jesper and Roddy and Kaz go to send a memo to Van Eck, I guess, to set up the meet for their trade. And Jesper kind of has a moment where he realizes that Roddy was basically told to watch him and stop him from trying to go gamble. And he realizes that he probably would. Like, if Roddy wasn't there watching him, he would have gone to go gamble, which is kind of sad. He thinks that once Nina is better, he might go to Ravka with her to, like, kind of see about cultivating his skills. I don't think he wants to, like, join up with the army, but he just wants to learn a little more, which is not a bad thing, I don't think.
No, definitely not.
Van Eck agrees to meet them the next day on the island that we talked about before. So the next day, Kaz, Jesper, Inej, Matthias, Kuwei, and Roddy take a longboat out to the meet, and they leave Wylan and Nina, obviously, because Nina is still dying, on the boat. And they also, there's other crew there too, so it's not just the two of them. En route, Jesper kind of starts to wonder if Wylan is trying to distance himself from him. If, like, now that he's going to have some money, he's, like, doesn't want to be around criminals anymore. Like, he'll be rich and he'll be able to go back to the lifestyle that he's used to. So Jesper's kind of, like, really down on himself about it, because, like, he hasn't seen Wylan for a while, and he doesn't feel like, he knows Wylan's helping Nina, but, like, he should get some time off, you'd think.
You'd think.
So everyone shows up at this island, and there's a giant trunk of money brought forward. And of course, now there's, like, a long ass conversation before we can, like, just switch stuff.
Yes.
Because that's how it always goes. Van Eck and Kaz talk about how this was, like, impossible, and that's why there were multiple teams sent. And Kaz says that he was talking to Pekka Rollins about it, which is news to Jesper. And Jesper has, like, a trickle of unease, where he wonders what else Pekka told Kaz.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to note. Kaz checks the treasure trunk, and all the money is there. So he goes to do the trade of Kuwei for the money, and it's all a ruse.
Oh my God.
No. Imagine.
We never would have thought.
Yeah. I don't know what book 2 would have been about if it wasn't, but anyway. Van Eck basically just stops him and says that there's no way any of them are getting off this island alive, which is, like, obviously.
Does he include himself in that?
I don't think so, but it's kind of funny.
Thank you. I have my moments.
I liked it. He blows a whistle, and the longboat that, like, Van Eck's people came over on is just full of tide makers. And there are 2 squallers that are using Perem in the air. So basically, they're all screwed.
Yes.
Jesper is kind of just excited that he'll be able to shoot something now. Like, he's like, oh, we're finally getting a bit of action, because he was, like, just done with being on the boat.
Yeah.
And then we just switch right on over to Kaz's point of view. And Kaz, kind of wondering what the hell is going on, he tells Van Eck that the Merchant Council have to uphold their deal. And Van Eck says that the council has never been involved. And Kaz kind of, like, has this dawning realization that he was fooled again. And he's like, it was a bit of set dressing, and it's basically the childhood ruse all over again. Like, exactly what happened to him and Jordy happened to him again. And, like, even to the point, like, Van Eck bought up all the Jurda fields and he's, like, counting on making a lot of money once people start trying to make the Jurda Perem. So, like, It's the exact same scam. But this time, it's an upstanding citizen, the merchant, doing it instead of a barrel boss.
Well, and
So
Kaz considers him now quite, I guess an adult-ish?
considers himself, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and well, and he thinks he knows shit. Like, he knows better than this in his mind.
Yeah.
So it is very sad that happened to him. It's a little bit funny too, which, it's not, but it is.
Yeah.
Van Eck also tells him that they were chosen because they are disposable and no one's gonna miss them. And then he gets the Grisha to blow up their longboat so that they can't leave the island. And then he sends a wave towards the larger boat. But Kaz yells out that Van Eck's son is still on that boat. So that stops Van Eck for a second. But then he explains, apparently Wylan can't read or write. He's very good at math and art and the flute, but he can't do those two things. So Van Eck says he can't inherit, like, his empire.
Yikes.
He says that, it's very extra.
But, like,
he says that...
I just feel like reading and writing are not major. I don't know.
In this world, it doesn't seem like, I don't know. Maybe we haven't been with any of the rich people, but I agree. Van Eck also says that, like, he's tried everything. He's tried specialized tutors and beatings. And you're like, oh, so they clearly have a terrible relationship.
Yeah.
And he's obviously been an asshole. Jesper kind of yells out and realizes that the letters that Van Eck was sending to Wylan were mocking him because he couldn't read them. And they literally said things like, if you're reading this, you know that I want you home. So, like, if he somehow learned how to read, his father wanted him to come home. Van Eck then explains that it's all soon going to be corrected because his new wife is pregnant. And he says, whether it be boy, girl, or have horns, it's going to be his new heir. And that's something for sure. Pretty shitty.
It is. Yeah, he's not a nice dude.
No. Jesper understandably gets super worked up over this, which I kind of love. And I'm like, give me all the romance, please. All of these characters.
Yeah.
And then Van Eck sends the wave to the ship again and crushes it. And I guess Nina and Wylan are dead. That's what we can take from that. So Jesper starts losing his shit, obviously, which is not surprising. And everyone else seems really calm, which is more surprising. But Kaz tells Van Eck that he won't get Kuwei, which obviously confuses him because Kuwei is right in front of him.
Yes.
But Kuwei finally steps forward and says something, and it's been Wylan all along. So
what?
Surprise! So Nina apparently tailored Wylan to look like Kuwei before all the Prem was, like, power was gone, so that Wylan would finally know for sure if his father would basically kill him. And obviously he would have killed him, which is sad to find out about your father. But Kaz and Van Eck are at an impasse now. And Van Eck just says, kill everybody but Kaz. And it's like he was going to kill his son for a second time, which is also sad.
It's ridiculous.
And we're still in Kaz's head. And he realizes he's making a mistake as he does it. But he looks at Inej, which I think is super cute. And I love it. But I'm also still a bit mad about it. Because then Van Eck realizes that is the person he needs to take to get to Kaz. So he says, get the money and get the girl. And Kaz knows he shouldn't, but he goes to her because he loves her.
Over the money.
Yeah. But obviously the Grisha are better than our group of heroes. which anti-heroes, I guess. And they eventually get Inej. She puts up a hell of a fight, but they end up knocking her out and taking her.
Oh, no.
Very sad. Vanek says that he'll give them a week to bring Kuwait to him, and if not, Inej will obviously be killed. And he says, you'll hear her screams all the way to Fjorda.
Yikes.
Just like, yeah.
It's a bit extra, dude.
He's very extra. And then they all leave, and they leave, I guess, Matthias, Roddy, Jesper, and Kaz on the island to die there.
Mm-hmm.
But Kaz starts thinking that like Nina and Kuwait are already hidden in the cells under Hellgate. So apparently they're not being used anymore. So they know that nobody's going to look for them there. Kaz feels like an idiot, which he's not really used to. And Jesper is super pissed at everybody, really. But he's pissed at Wylan because he just changed himself and like completely changed his face. And nobody told Jesper that he was going to do it, but everybody else knew about it.
Yeah.
So like...
Even though we weren't privy to any of those conversations.
No, we didn't know about it, of course,
No.
as readers. And Kaz tells Jesper that they didn't tell him, and he's the only one who didn't know because he apparently is the one that told Pekka indirectly, but it's how it got back there, that they were leaving, and he's the reason that Inej almost got killed.
Yikes.
Yeah. So that is... not great. Kaz is a bit of a dick to Jesper, and which isn't really surprising. He's clearly in a bad place right now, and he cares about Inej a lot. So Jesper then goes to attack Kaz, but Wylan stops them. And while they're sitting there waiting to be picked up, Kaz starts to get an idea. And they notice his scheming face. And Kaz says that he's going to invent a new trick. And this part kind of bookends, like, from the beginning. Because Kaz says that he's going to need the right crew.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he said.
Yeah.
Before they went out on the first thing. Kaz realizes that he started to get a little soft when he said that he wanted Inej to stay. And he doesn't want to be that boy that gets screwed over. So he thinks about how he's going to make himself all hard again, which is like sad in the wrong direction, in my opinion. So he thinks he's going to get his money and he's going to get his girl, even though he knows that she could never really be his, but he's going to get her freedom for her. Then we jump over to an interesting point of view. We go to Pekka's point of view. And we get our first look at Nina here through Pekka's eyes, and apparently she's not looking great. She's all bones, and she's leaning on Matthias, and she just doesn't look very well.
Yeah. She looks whelmed. Because you can't be overwhelmed, and you can't be underwhelmed, but you can just be whelmed.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
So Pekka's thinking about how he didn't know if he was going to be assassinated or saved when Kaz found him in the cell in Fjorda, which obviously we didn't know either, because after he left, we didn't know if he'd killed him or not. But obviously he didn't kill him. Pekka still thinks that Kaz is kind of like a youngin', and that he's not someone anywhere near his equal, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I guess Pekka's thinking about when Kaz visited him at the prison, and he opened the door, and Kaz asked him if he knew who he was. And Pekka said, yes, of course, you're the one stealing all my customers. And he says a look of hatred went over Kaz's eyes, but then disappeared.
Yeah.
And that's one of those situations where you're like, how can you tell what fucking hatred looks like in somebody's eyes? But anyway, I digress. Pekka wonders if he like had imagined it And then Kaz said that he's going to do him a favor and leave the door open. And he says, when I leave, like, you can escape because you're not supposed to die here. So Pekka basically said he owes him a favor. And Kaz told him that he'll pay. And now apparently they're there to collect.
Yikes.
Yeah. Pekka kind of says that like they should just cut their losses and trade Kue for Inej. Like basically there's nothing they can really do about it all because like he's a merchant. Like they're not going to be able to go against the merchant council. But obviously Kaz isn't going to agree to that. He says he's not looking for advice or for people to fight with him. He's just looking for money.
Yeah.
And he's looking for 200,000 Kruga. And he also needs to get a message to Ravka. Kaz also offers over his shares in the Crow Club and in Fifth Harbor for the money. And as they shake on it, Kaz kind of says to him, "You don't remember me at all, do you?" And Pekka replies, "Should I?" Which Kaz then says, "Not just yet," which is like foreshadowing. But I guess they leave, and Pekka is kind of just thinking about how they're all kids, and like, obviously that's true. We've said that a million times. But he's kind of like, Van Eck's going to be waiting for them. Like, Van Eck is obviously going to destroy Kaz. And then he realizes that Kaz stole his watch. No, well, his, I guess, pocket watch, his wallet, the gold buckles on his shoes, his tie pin, his lucky coin. And I'm like, how did he steal all that?
He stole all of it.
Like, how did he get his shoe buckles? Like, did he use his feet? I know he's like
took his shoes
magic
off and used his like foot in a sock.
Yeah. Like, I don't get it. Anyway, so Kaz obviously is good at sleight of hand, and he stole all of Van Eck's shit. And I think there was like a turnip hanging from his like pocket watch chain, which is wild. But Pekka starts to think that maybe Van Eck could be in trouble. And he says that like they better hope that Van Eck kills the boy or he's gonna have to. And that is the end.
I know. So like the only thing is like I feel like Pekka should have a clue about like when somebody asks like, "Oh, do you recognize me?" Like hint number one, people, that you know that person.
Yes.
Right? Like, how often do people say, "Do you recognize me?" And you like, I'm not going to go up to somebody I don't know and say, "Hey, do you recognize me?" Like, you know what I mean? It's just not something you do. So I feel like he should have clicked. Oh, shit. Like,
this is somebody from something.
This is
at the very least.
Yeah, somebody who recognizes me and I don't recognize them, which, you know,
like,
issue.
Yeah, there's something there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously there are a few cliffhangers here.
Yeah.
For all the fun.
We don't know what happens to Inej. We don't know if Wylan ever turns back into himself. We don't learn anything about like what's going to happen with that $200,000. What's going to happen with that? We don't know anything.
Yeah, it's
takeaway. There's
nothing really there. Like, we don't know if Parem is no longer going to be in the world because nobody can make it,
or if Nina is okay.
Well, yeah. Like, I guess this is like the next day after the boat thing because they only have a week.
Yeah.
So she's standing, leaning against Matthias. So, like, she's
better.
Not dead, I guess. She's not lying down in bed. That's something.
Score.
It's not a lot, but yeah. Book 2 immediately starts after this. It's like the next second. But yeah.
I will say, and you know, like, we've had the discussion that the ending is not my favorite. I like everything wrapped up in a nice bow, and this very
Yes.
much was not wrapped up in a bow, so I'm sort of like not super annoyed with it. Like I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of just like, oh, why couldn't they just wrap everything up in a nice bow for the end, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
obviously I get why she did it the way she did it. But
Yeah, there is another book. So
yeah.
that's how a lot of like obviously series have to get readers back. So they end it so that you want to, it's like shows do the same thing. It's all like, I like your writing. You don't need to kill me with these endings.
But
But
like,
I guess.
yeah. But I prefer the types of series where, yes, it does give you a little bit of a cliffhanger to hang on to, but also
Mm-hmm.
mostly resolves things so that you're not left like completely out on a ledge there.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a lot that we don't know in this one.
Yes,
Like a
yes.
lot.
There's a lot. Anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah. So I guess that wraps it up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in any of our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, you can email us at coffeeandcoread at gmail.com. And be sure to check us out on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Coffee and Co Read.
So, guys, I get the pleasure of announcing our next book, and it's time for my all-time favorite book in the entire world. So next week, we're going back to the ACOTAR world. We're going back to Sarah J. Maas, and we are reading A Court of Mist and Fury.
Woo, woo, woo,
Woo
woo,
woo!
woo!
Happy birthday to me and to you.
Yeah.
But I think this is more for me.
Yes.
So, like, I'm the most excited person on the face of the planet. We're going to start with chapters 1 to 13. So make sure to catch up, follow along. And if you're enjoying our little chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you find our content. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll see you on the next ACOMAF page.